Good for you.
I'm always making a face. Hi guys, it's your two poly chicks, Tiffany and
Hi
Cindy.
guys.
And as always, we want you to make sure that you subscribe. Look at that button and make sure you subscribe and hit the like or dislike button, depending on what we're saying, whether you agree or disagree, like or dislike. But today we're going to talk about two things. There's two things that's always guaranteed in life, and that's death and taxes. Once you're living, you know you're going to die, and you'll always pay Uncle Sam, pay the piper, or at least you should. I mean, we'll always come after you, or they'll always come after you for your taxes, I should say.
If you earn money, guys, if you have any passive or active income, yes.
Yes, death and taxes. And sometimes even when you don't, they come in, and that's a whole other story. We should do something. Well, that's a whole other story. But death and taxes, that's the adage, right? Those two things are always warranted in life. And so today we're going to talk about your death planning, your estate planning, what happens when you pass away, and whether or not you have items in let's say in place for when you go, when you leave this earth. And the one thing that I wanted to talk about, which I've had my will done for a few years now, and my parents had just gotten their will done. My husband, I'm still talking to him about getting his done, but you know, it's something that we should all have, because a will, it basically is called the last will and testament, and it communicates your final wishes pertaining to any assets that you may have, if you have young dependents, if you have people that you want to have specific items, and people that you want to take over your underage dependents. So that's something that we wanted to discuss and come on and talk about. So what do you think about having a will in place, a last will, to determine, where you want your assets?
I know, like, I don't know. I don't want to make a general statement, but I believe, it's just my belief, that people of color probably don't do it as much as they should. And that's why you see a lot of people fighting when the death happens. You see them start to fight over money. Well, she had this and he had that. That I think is very important, because even when I look around in my house, there's things, I got my certain pots and pans. As a chefy type person, I love my pots and pans. Who would I want to give that to? Like that they wouldn't scratch it and treat it a mess. Who would I want to give my favorite pair of shoes to? Who would I want my journals to go to? So I kind of did already. You did better than me, though, Tiff. I didn't make a will, but what I did, I told everybody in the house what I would want them to have. I was like, you can have this, you can have this. I know.
And when the time comes, they're going to be like, no, she said this. I cook more than you.
It's awful. I need to do it. And the funny thing is, I keep getting on my mother about it. We always think because the person's older that we should maybe tell them. But I think it's for everybody. What I looked at when I looked it up, it was talking about some of the benefits of it, things that you already just basically know. Who do you want to take your valuable things, and what items do you want specifically to go to a person? But what it also mentioned, I thought was interesting, was you can give to different causes that are at your heart. Let's say you were struggling before you passed away. You knew you were sick over time and you cancer or whatever. You could give to those different organizations
like
before you die.
Bill and Melinda Gates have most of their fortune going to causes, to social causes, and people in Africa. So their kids are not getting most of their wealth. It's going to causes that are near and dear to their heart. And you have some people that leave all of their money to their pet. And it's like whoever the pet sitter is going to be will be
whoever takes the pet.
Yeah. And you have to, one of the things that I mean, because I went to get my will amended. And one of the things that you have to do is ask the person whether or not they would be willing to take care of certain things. Like you have to have a personal representative who will take care of all your paperwork, go to the courts and file in the courts and present the will and present which assets that you have. You have to ask that person if they're willing and able to do it, and then have a subsequent person. The same thing with your dependents. You have to have someone that's in place and then someone that would be after that person if that person decides not to do it. Because one of the things that when I was speaking to the lawyer, he said, well, if there's no one in place for your kids, what happens is the court decides. Now, the court may decide because this one specific person is next of kin that they're the best person for your kid. But some of my family members that would be the next of kin to Donovan, he doesn't know that well. He doesn't know them. Like, he knows Shadina, which is my like third or fourth cousin, better than he knows some of my siblings. So it's like he would automatically be considered to go to my siblings, but he doesn't really know them like that.
And he doesn't get to decide. He doesn't get to decide. He doesn't get to say, nope, I don't want that. Nope.
Yep. So that's where you having that person in place that you've asked and spoken to and said, hey, this is what I'm designating. This is what I want. This is how I want it. It's just so important, because otherwise you leave it to chance. And
you don't want it to, and I think we think almost like it's very complicated, although it is a legal document, it is complicated, but you probably can write something out yourself, go through the items in your house, get it notarized, get a lawyer to say, okay, this is valid, get it filed, and then you pretty much did it. And it is expensive sometimes, but maybe that's the cheaper way to go, just to really legitimately type out, take the time off social media or whatever it is. And this is me speaking to myself also, and just really list out. What I did was I told my kids where the money was. I said, this is my savings account. This is my checking account. This is what you have as your, so they're not confused. But I definitely am a person that needs to do,
you have 3 kids, and you know, as well as I know, when people die,
it's gonna be a mess. It'll be a mess.
I just my grandmother lost her husband recently, and people come out of the woodworks. People come and say, "Oh, well, I was his favorite niece." So, and it's like, well, wait,
we talked every day on the phone, but I never heard of you. But we talked every day on the phone.
Having that document in place, where it's like, you get this, she gets that, we get this. It just really solidifies things. And people feel like, okay, well, when I get a will, or if I get a something like this in place, then that means I'm kind of like,
I'm gonna die.
But you're gonna die eventually anyway. So,
and look at what happened with COVID. Look at what happened with COVID. Look how many, especially people of color, that passed away unexpectedly, just unexpected. Like I said, we're busy looking at older. I know I look at my mother and be like, Mommy, you should have a will. My father had a will when he died. So he designated who got what. So it was no big drama. But it was some offenses, because people felt like, hey, I should have got more than this one, and I should have, so, but that's you work for it.
Because I had updated my will. He said, you know what? He said, you can put it whatever you want, the way you want it. He said, you're not going to be around to have to argue with them about it.
He doesn't know he doesn't know we're mad at him. He doesn't understand that
and that's it. You're like, you're out of the picture at that point. So
it's not like he's laying in the corner and going, ouch, she's talking about me.
It's like,
she's talking about
I already said what I said, and I meant what I said. And it's a living document, so you can always change it. And that's what people don't understand too. Once you put that in place and you feel like something changed, or you start disliking one of your kids more than the other, you can do 70-30 instead of 50-50.
Yeah, exactly. When I worked at this bank years ago, when I was probably like 18, 19, somewhere around there, I worked in the division where people would call about traveler's checks, and they would want to know if they found traveler's checks. Let's say after years and years, you lost these traveler's checks, you found them, and they would call in to see if they were still valid. A lot of them were from people that were dead. Wow. Like, people died with all these traveler's checks, and they would have to present the will. And I would be sitting up there. I was so nosy. I would be sitting up there reading the will, and it'd be listing. It would list the kids, and then it would say Stacy gets 20%, so and so gets 5%. I'm like, what did Stacy do? And so I would be sitting up there reading it, like, wow. They literally will tell you who gets what. Like, percentage wise, you get my trust, you get my clothing, you get my jewelry, you get I think the other thing is, we think we don't have things of value.
Yeah.
So I think we really don't value, like, I have cookbooks that are really old. I have my recipe books. Who would I want to get that? Things that I worked years on creating recipes.
Yeah.
Like I
Pictures.
said,
Think
yeah,
about pictures. Your picture.
pictures,
One of
yeah.
the things when baby daddy David,
Hmm.
his mom had passed when he was pretty young. He didn't get a say of who got which pictures, and
Yeah,
he's underage, and he spent a while, grieving over the fact that he didn't have certain pictures
yeah,
and he didn't have
yeah.
certain is it mementos or mementos?
Mementos, yeah,
He
mementos.
didn't have certain those things to carry on into his adulthood, and that sucks. So if you think about that,
Mm.
even if you don't have small children, if you have relatives that you want to have specific items, you want to have that in place. And
Yeah.
it's important. And one thing with wives or spouses, you automatically think, okay, well, I'm his or her spouse, I'll get whatever the amount is.
Hmm.
But if the person that is deceased has other children outside of that marriage, that plays a factor into what you get. If they have children with you, that plays a
Yep.
factor into what you get. It's not an automatic you get because you're the spouse. So those are
Nope.
so many things. And you can deliberately leave someone off your will. So if you
Yeah.
are deliberately leaving, let's say I wanted to leave man off and I say I'm deliberately not I wouldn't do that to my baby. But let's say I wanted to, you can
Hmm.
actually deliberately put,
You,
I am deliberately leaving
yeah,
this person.
leaving
So
you.
when the
You know
court
what you could
comes,
do?
yeah, and he
You,
comes and he's like, well, they didn't include me. It says
they forgot
deliberately.
me. Yeah, they forgot me. You know what I seen in the wills? I leave them $10.
Wow.
I think that's worse than leaving them out.
That's what I was gonna say. It's almost like an insult, like a gut punch, like
It's like that's how you do a waiter when you're mad at them. You be like, I'm gonna leave them 50 cents
a
for a tip.
dollar. I'm gonna live a
Yeah,
dollar.
I'm gonna
Leave
leave
a
a tip.
dollar.
Let me
Oh
tell you,
my
when you
God.
started talking about marriage, I remember when I was working at the IRS 20 years ago, more than that. That we had an employee that died unexpectedly.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
you remember it was
Mhm.
so doggone
Yeah.
sad. Why? Because she was separated, not divorced.
Yeah.
And the job would not release the money to her family, to her
Yep.
mother and
Yep.
I think her mother and her sister, or whoever, they needed
Yeah.
money to bury her and everything. And the government, because she never changed her paperwork.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
legally, she was married to this guy. He was a crackhead.
Yeah.
He was a
And guess what?
crackhead.
He
And
got that money and was like
he got the
dancing like
money.
Gator. Remember
Yep,
Gator?
he was Gator. It was. He's like, do that dance for me, Gator.
He's like,
He was,
yeah.
it was so sad. It was so sad to have worked with her, a
Yeah.
hardworking woman who
Yeah.
put all her time and attention into her kids and
Yeah.
all of that. And she never changed her paperwork. And her family tried to keep him from knowing that she died. They didn't
Yeah.
even want him
That
to know
doesn't
that she
even,
died.
yeah.
And they
That doesn't
couldn't.
make a difference.
They couldn't.
They can't get anything after once
Nope.
those documents are in place and it shows you're married or
Yep.
certain things on the record. They have
Yep.
to go through that person, that
Yep.
that legal spouse or that legal
And
next
he
of
got
kin.
it. He got it. And he, guess
I
what? He
remember
had
them
the
doing the
paperwork
collection.
funeral.
I remember them for
Yeah, we had to do a
it
collection.
was just it was
It was really
ridiculous.
sad. And he had to give the money for the funeral services.
Yeah.
He wouldn't give up anything. So we
Yeah.
wound up doing a
Was
collection.
it was sad. So let's also talk about the living will and the healthcare proxy. So
Yeah.
before you pass away, you may be sick, you may be on your deathbed and about to
Mm-hmm.
pass away, or maybe incapacitated where you can't make
Mm-hmm.
rational decisions.
Right.
That's when you have that healthcare proxy, which I don't have. I do
I
need
have
to get
that.
one of those and
Ooh,
place.
I have that too.
I
I
have to
do
get a
have that.
healthcare
I do
proxy
have
in
that.
place.
Yeah.
But I feel like with the healthcare proxy, it puts a lot on someone, whoever you designate to have that, because they have to make those decisions for you as far as your health and discuss with the doctor
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
going forward. And
Right.
it becomes, I don't want to say a burden, but it can become overwhelming
Stressful.
for someone
Stressful.
and stressful too.
Well, see,
So,
I did it because I had to have major surgery 3 times.
yeah.
So what I did was on my last one, I was still married. We were separated. We were going through the divorce. I
Okay.
didn't want to have it that he had to come in and make the decision. Although I think he would have made a great decision. I don't think he would have did anything except cut the plug or anything. So it's not an angry divorce, a bitter divorce, but I didn't want him to even be at the hospital. He was like, let me come up to the hospital. And I was like, no. I have a healthcare proxy. And
Yeah.
so I designated 2 other people.
Yeah.
I know I wouldn't do my mother. She'd probably be too emotional. There's people I wouldn't do. My other sister, she's probably too like aggressive or whatever. I was like, no, I'm just going to get one family member and one friend. So that's how I did it. And it was stressful, but I told them before I did it. Obviously, you don't want to make a proxy and the person don't know.
And they're like, what? When did she put me on?
Yeah.
And that's what I told David, because I was like, I don't want, like, with the personal representative who's going to handle all the paperwork and all of that.
Yeah.
I understand that whoever you leave behind that you trust, they're going to be going through an emotional time. But there's certain people that'll feel it harder and more devastated. It will be more devastating to those people. So, and you want to put someone that you believe will have your best interest and carry out what you want.
And that's
I didn't
the point.
want
That's
that.
the point.
Yeah,
that's
you
the point.
have to. And they always say you have to be of sound mind when you're doing
mind.
that.
Yeah,
So
and you need a person
proxies,
of sound mind.
Yeah, healthcare proxies, basically what they are, if we didn't explain it, is if you're in the hospital, or if you're like ill, not on your last legs, but if you're ill and you need someone to make decisions for you, and they can speak to the doctor, they can ask about your medication, they can ask about your prognosis and your diagnosis, and they can also talk to them about the paths going forward and when you're released and all of that. So that's what the healthcare proxy,
and you can do it before. You don't even have to be sick to do that. You can do that before, because I did it way before the surgery. I knew the surgery, like I did it months before. So you don't have to be sick, like wait till you get in the hospital. You could actually do some of this paperwork now. I know, like what that all falls under what they call the estate plan. So under your estate plan, you have your living trust, you have your will, you have your financial documents, and you have your medical. So what Tiff right now is talking about is your medical.
Your medical.
So you want your medical. There's the other thing of living trust, which helps you. What I was reading about was there's a difference between the will and the living trust. You can do either or. One of them with the living trust, you can avoid all of the probate stuff. So with the will, you got to go through probate, which is to prove that this will is valid, blah, 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 has to go to the court. You can avoid that and just do a living trust and just say, okay, I want to designate these people to have this. It's also updatable, changeable. But it's effective like right away.
One. If you do an irrevocable one, then it's not. A revocable one you can change all the time. And a lot of rich people do that because what happens is you can avoid probate, and not so much the tax of it, but you can avoid going through having to pay
the drama. The drama.
And it's and then there's also the living will when you're and we talked about that too. The living will, it kind of goes in line with the healthcare proxy, which is the let's say I'm in a vegetative state. Do I want to be fed intravenous?
Do you want to be resuscitated?
Do I want to be resuscitated? Do I want to just be a vegetable and live on this machine for the next years? And it's a hard decision to make, because when you make it and you find that document, I have one of those, and I actually got that in place when I had the hysterectomy, because it's like, you know what? If I'm in a vegetative state, do I really want to still living?
And you don't want somebody to speak for you and say, Tip will want to live no matter what. Or Tip will want to be dead.
No, it's in writing, it's notarized, it has the two people's names that I trust to make the right decision, even if it hurts them the most, but it has those people listed to make those decisions and to say, now you know what I want. When I'm in that state, you don't have to feel guilty about doing what I want you to do, because that's what I want. Some people do hide that living will for selfish reasons, to say, okay, well, I want to keep that person alive because it may change. But you're violating the law by going against.
Now I'm gonna haunt you.
I would, because I told you to keep you on these machines for 10 years. I got bed sores. I haven't talked in forever.
And let me tell you, if you don't know about those housing places where you go, what is it, the nursing home? When you go, I visited a young friend in her 40s in a nursing home that couldn't talk, incapacitated. Let me tell you, you are assigning somebody to a life of somebody feeding you, brushing your teeth. I mean,
just caring for you forever.
Caring for you. And let me tell you, they're not always caring for you. So we went to see her. Her mouth was white. I'm like, she wouldn't want to be looking like this. Mouth white, foaming, dry skin. And she was a vain kind of person, lively, vain, and just
take pictures like this.
I'm saying. So
but
would
see,
you
that's why
live?
we say have those documents in place. So when like Cindy said earlier, people think estate planning and they're like, oh, well, I don't have an estate, or I don't have think about your kids, your underage kids. Think about your personal possessions that
Your
people are
car,
gonna
your
ravage through. They're gonna ravage through
they're
it
gonna
once
tear the new
before
one.
you even in the ground. They're gonna go through what they want.
Yep.
And one of the things, we had a neighbor who lost his sister that he lived with. One of the things that the courts told him is that he could not touch anything in that house, remove anything. They came and took inventory because she had a will in place. He couldn't touch anything, and
Right.
that stops people
Not
from
the
coming through,
spoons, not the
ravaging
plastic
you.
spoons.
Yeah, it just, it protects you. It protects your children.
Yep.
It protects anything, and it gives what you want. It gives what you want to the outside world, to the courts, and you get to have say. And some people plan their own funerals, don't they, Cindy? They
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
pre-planned funeral.
Music, because it'll take the burden off of your family.
Yes.
It'll take, and if you've ever buried a parent, I have. It's the most. We went to the funeral. I mean, it's like a fog.
Wow.
You're sitting there, you can't believe it, and I'm like, my father's dead, and then I gotta say what kind of suit he's gonna wear. Because my mother was a complete. She was a complete mess.
I'm sure.
She was a complete mess. So it left it to me and my sister and my brother. Wow. He was like a mess. So my mother and my brother and one of my other sisters was a mess. So it was just me, and one of them was too young. So it left me. And so we sitting there, and I'm have to talk about the suit. We have to make the program. We have to say who's coming. We have to call people. We had to do the utility, all these things.
So you can actually do that pre-plan. There's a lot of funeral homes that offer packages, and plus you're getting today's rates for something that's going to happen in the future.
Right. I
don't plan on dying for another 40, 50 years. So I can plan my funeral now, pay for that now, or play
the music. What music do you want play? I mean, last year we buried our niece. It was, I can't even think about it was so stressful. Same thing, a mother, a sister, father, complete mess. So now I'm like, okay, I'll do it, planning the music. What does she like? Writing a poem. That stuff is stressful.
Well, let me say on this video, I want some party music.
I want jokes to be told. I want people to tell jokes.
I don't want the down, because I feel like my life has been awesome. And whenever I know we're going to eventually die, if I die, God forbid, I don't want to, because I don't have grandkids yet and all that other stuff. So if I die tomorrow, know that I've been happy most of my life. And I want you guys to celebrate my life versus being like, I want some Bruno Mars, some uptown, funk you up. Like go down the aisle, like, oh, this is what my mother wanted.
So when I do the cha-cha slide down the aisle of your thing, I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna be like, she wanted this.
But they're gonna be like, what is that? What is Cindy?
What is Cindy doing? I'm doing what she wants. Back that thing up. Back that thing up. But when the one that was just telling you that we went to the nursing home to see her, eventually she died. She died right before COVID hit, right? 2019. And her funeral was hilarious. It was just what she would have wanted. It was so funny. People were doing roast jokes. And I was like, man, I want to go out like that. What the heck we sitting up here crying for? Cry later. Tell some jokes. Have some good food. Talk about me, how mean I was, how moody I always, talk about all that. I know Tim went way to me.
Like, I'm next. I'm next. But I mean, it's called the celebration of life. Even though you're dead, but that's what they call it, the celebration of life. So we want to, enjoy, and there's some people that want somber funerals. There's nothing wrong with that, but you know what you want and have that in place. That's the main thing we wanted to convey to you guys. Estate planning is not just for the rich. It's not just for a specific race. It's for what you want to designate to your loved ones. That's pretty much it.
Because the politics will kick in on that one.
Yes.
The politics, I saw it, I lived it. My father did have a will, but there was certain things that was a little needed fixing. And I was like, this is a lesson. And we didn't fight on anything, but I've seen family members fight over things. One of my family members did die. I saw people fighting over the jewelry. And I was like, yo, no way. So for the estate plan, guys, just as a simple, I know we gave you a lot, but living trust is I think it's like 4 parts. It's a living trust, a will, the financial part, which we didn't talk about, and the medical. So the financial part is like managing your property, your finances, where you want your money to go, who's going to be the guardian over that. How is the memorial? We kind of touched on that. The memorial, how would that be paid off? So that would be a financial power of attorney, a person that will come in and just, I don't know if you have more to add to that one, but I just read up very briefly just to see what the parts were of
Yeah,
it.
I didn't see that one. I didn't
Yeah.
see financial.
It was talking about the financial parts. We can link a video. It was a brief
Okay.
5-minute video, and the
Okay.
lady just went through the parts, and she was saying that the financial part is one, and then the medical we talked about is always the other one. And you're like, it was your end of life plan. How do you want your life to end and all of that? That's the medical.
Yep.
And then the financial, you know, because you might have certain bills that have to be paid, or certain things you want to pay, or certain people you want to give specific little money to, or anything like that. Or if you have kids, you might want to say how much the kids should get for a month or whatever they allow. You know, those things, you need a financial person to really, I mean, it seems very complicated, but you know your life, right? Like, so you know how you live on a day-to-day basis. So when you're not here, what's that absence going to be?
Yeah.
So I think that's just the way to think about it, right? Like, what's my absence going to cause? Like what? And then how can I take care of that?
Yeah,
now,
and
like we said,
consider getting life insurance too if you don't have life insurance.
Yeah,
because that'll help take off the burden on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And the one thing what we said in the beginning, life, death, and taxes do
Guaranteed.
follow you into your death. It does.
Yep.
That's one of the only creditors that can come after your estate, that can come out of your homestead, that can come out of anything that you may have. So that's one of the unavoidable items when it comes to you passing. So those are unavoidable.
So, but guys, obviously we're in no way experts, but every person on this earth, if you're an adult or whatever, has some things. Even if you're a teenager, you could have things that you don't want. You bought this nice jewelry, you bought this nice jacket, you bought this nice thing. Who would you want to have that? Do you want people to be giving it away, selling it? Do you want people to sell it, or do you want to give it to a person you know that's going to take care of it? So I think it applies to anybody that's of a certain, like you said, sound mind, of a certain age and a sound mind. You know?
And like Cindy said, you can always go and have something written up. I mean, actually doing the documents with an attorney can be less than $200. If you're doing a simple will, you can get it for $100 with legal advice with a legal attorney. So I mean, I guess it depends on your finances, but $100, I'm sure people have spent $100 on foolishness. $100 to ensure that your stuff is in place is a good investment.
And just get one person you trust. Like I would say, hey, Tiff, you want to come with me? I want to do this. And you go over it with Tiff so she could say, I was a witness to it. So she could actually be the witness to it. I'm a witness to it. She said she wanted this, and this is her. This was her. So it's something just that simple of that. I just think it's very selfish to die and leave all the burden. Selfish thing to die. Don't be dying on me. Don't you die, enemy. Don't you die on me. I kill you.
Leave me with these decisions.
Leave me with these decisions. I think it's kind of selfish to do that because you're not leaving people time to grieve. You know, like you don't leave people time. And I know, speaking from personal experience, it was a little bit of taken away from my grieving to have to sit there and go through the paperwork.
Yes.
And them funeral people are not going to hear your sad stories. They want to know, how am I getting paid?
They're like, where's the money?
Give me cha-ching. So this is a good topic. I think it was very appropriate. We're always about education. So I think it's, you know, I'm glad you brought this up as something to do. Very important to do. I was like, I don't know much on this. I don't really want to be bothered with that, but you know,
but it's something we should all have.
You're making me think again about something.
Something that we should all have. And like you said, your cookbooks, your pots, things that are near and dear to you, your jewelry, things of that nature, we should all have it. And like I said, when you have minor children, anyone that's out there that have minor children or have nieces and nephews that they want to have things that may not be their direct lineage for their heirs, you want to designate that. It's just that important.
You could have a special somebody that nobody knows about. You could have a boo thing and you want to get, hey, I want my boo thing to get this. The family ain't gonna be thinking about your boo thing.
Can you imagine? You know how those movies, they all get together to read the will and they're like, wait, who gets what?
Who? You could.
Wait, I'm gonna tell you this funny thing, because when I was looking at my will, when they did my will the last time, I looked, and it's a thing called perstirpes or stirps, STIRPES, and David, it's per STIRPS. I think it's stirpes. That's the way you pronounce it. If he was deceased after he inherits my portion, his portion that I'm leaving him, his kids absolve his portion, and that's any kids. So I was like, wait, any kids? You could have 3 or 4 kids that I don't know about.
I love child.
Oh yeah, and they're like, oh, I get that money, and I was
Thanks,
like,
Tiff.
you could take that part out. I said, if he dies, then it goes to my 2 kids, because the attorney was like, well, he said, isn't Donovan his kid? And I was like, yeah, but it says,
I don't know of another one.
All legal kids.
Yeah. I was reading that in the will, because it has it that if so-and-so should precede me, so-and-so gets it. If so-and-so should precede him, then this one gets it. You gotta be very specific.
I was specific, because I was like, I don't want no sturpies in here, because I don't know who his kids are. So you could take that out. He was like,
I love child.
He said, okay. And
he was like, that escalated.
Like, no, I don't know. Shoot. So like you said, that love child or that love person, makes you sitting there and like, well, who are you? And they're like, they're crossing their legs. Like, I'm getting something.
I know we said we're gonna end, and we are at the 31-minute mark.
Oh wow.
But I just wanted to add one more thing. You remember, this is Wipe the Smile. BB, what was her name? The one that had Alzheimer's, and her husband had his is it B Moore?
Oh yes, B
Smith.
And he had his wife live, or he had his wife and his mistress,
because she was not of a sound mind anymore.
Yeah.
And so her legacy goes to him and the new woman that he didn't even wait for her to die.
Yeah,
he didn't even wait for her to die. He said she would have wanted me to be happy. Like I believe that's what he said. Like, I don't want to. Apparently, it was something like she wouldn't. She was okay with it. Because, and they had pictures of them together, but she wasn't in her sound mind at that point.
But think about this: she can't please him sexually. She can't talk to him. She can't, like, she was out of. I don't want to say out of her mind, but she was literally not. She was in dementia.
Mind. She was
right. So it's like he decides, I need companionship, and he moves his wife or his boo thing, as you said, and with them, and it's a throuple or threesome or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but she's not of sound mind. Yeah.
So
because she can't, you wouldn't let her sign any documents. So how would you know? How do we know she would have agreed to that?
Yeah.
She didn't agree to that when she was in her sound mind.
Yeah.
Why would I think she would have agreed to it when she's not?
I remember that.
That was controversial.
Recently, right?
That was in a few years, in the last few years. It was controversial.
Mm-hmm.
People were going for him. I was like, I'm not saying anything, but I know, like, if that was my sister or my mother or something, I'd be on the roof.
Yeah.
Her husband. Same thing happened with happened with the one that did the they made hair products, and one of them committed suicide. But she, the two sisters, Jessie, is it Jessie Jesse's Curls or something like that.
Okay.
One of them committed suicide. It was two sisters. They started their business, and then eventually she committed suicide. And I think it was a fight between the boyfriend or I don't know if he was a boyfriend or a husband, and the sister that was left, because now this whole, they created a dynasty with these Jessie Curls. I think it's Jessie Curls.
Oh, okay. Well, if you think about all the stars that go without having a will, like Prince and James Brown, and you have just sitting in limbo where no one knows what to do.
I think Aretha Franklin, no, she had a will, but I thought there was some fight with her.
There was some type of issue with that. So it's like, and then even with the living will, I don't know if you guys want to look up Terry Schiavo, Terry Schiavo, where her husband, he wanted to pull the plug on her, and
the family was fighting it.
But remember, the husband has certain rights as per the law, and how they guide who gets to decide what. So if you have that living will or that proxy in place where you can say this person decides, then that takes care of that. And you say, I don't want to
that
live on.
case was long.
It was years long.
That
So
case was
we
long.
want to avoid those things. And it's like I said, it's not just a rich person thing or a white person, black person. We all should have it. If we're living, we should all have something in place for when we die. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Oh,
So
this is great.
That was good. It was quick, even though I thought we were quicker than what we
I know. Well, you know, once we get to talking, once you mention anecdotes, and we be cutting each other off, we be like, yeah. Guys, this is 30 years of this. 30 years.
30
this is
plus,
whatever.
Right?
Yeah.
Like ever. But thanks, guys, for watching. You can always send us to polychicks@gmail.com and any topics that you want us to discuss. Yeah. Follow us on social media, Insta, Twitter, Facebook, to Polychicks, and watch us, subscribe on Polychicks. Okay?
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.